WNBA finals. And so I'll leave it there. I mean, I'm just obviously disheartened. I'm a human too. I have a family. I have 2 kids who are devastated by these comments. And so all I'll say is just, it's obviously been a tough week. And
a massive earthquake just rocked the WNBA, one that could change everything. 3 of its brightest stars, Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark, and Lexie Hull, have reportedly signed blockbuster European deals, throwing the league into an unprecedented identity crisis. This isn't just an off-season headline, it's a reckoning. A moment that could define the future of women's basketball in America for decades to come. The implications are staggering. Caitlin Clark, fresh off a record-breaking rookie season that reignited national interest in women's basketball, walking away isn't just the loss of a superstar. It's a condemnation of the system itself. Sophie Cunningham, one of the most marketable and outspoken personalities in the league, leaving send shockwaves through sponsors and media partners. And Lexie Hull, a young, rising talent, choosing to depart before even reaching her prime, suggests the issue isn't isolated. It's systemic. What began as quiet whispers has erupted into a league-wide uproar. Reports reveal that secret negotiations had been unfolding for months. Hidden meetings, encrypted calls, and late-night sit-downs with international agents known for orchestrating high-profile European contracts. By the time the truth surfaced, the deals were done, and the WNBA was left scrambling for answers. Sources describe these European clubs as strategic and well-funded, backed by wealthy ownership groups and operating under a completely different economic structure. With WNBA popularity skyrocketing, but salaries still lagging far behind, they saw their window. And they moved fast. These weren't just contracts. They were complete lifestyle offers. Luxury apartments, personal chefs, private drivers, and financial packages that dwarfed WNBA deals. The agents behind them weren't your typical domestic reps. They were international sports power brokers, experts in cross-border negotiations, tax optimization, and visa logistics, crafting offers that were airtight and impossible to ignore. Their message was brutally simple. You can make more in 3 years overseas than in your entire WNBA career. This isn't just about basketball, it's about economics. The harsh truth the league has avoided for years is finally impossible to ignore. The average WNBA star earns a fraction of what their European counterparts make. Even top players rarely crack the low 6 figures, while European clubs can offer 2 to 4 times that amount, plus perks that make life on and off the court dramatically better. The result? A full-scale exodus that exposes the uncomfortable reality behind the WNBA's glossy marketing. Passion alone can't pay the bills. Would you like me to make this version more documentary-style narration, like a Netflix voiceover script, or keep it as a written editorial tone for an article or post format? A financial earthquake has ripped through the WNBA, one that's exposing just how deep the league's economic cracks run. A typical WNBA superstar earns between $200,000 and $250,000 per season. Across the ocean, players of similar, or even lesser, stature in Europe are pulling in $500,000 and beyond, with elite international contracts soaring into the 7-figure range. When you factor in bonuses, endorsements, and cost of living perks, the gap becomes impossible to ignore. For professional athletes with short career windows, the math is brutally simple. Europe offers security. The WNBA offers survival. But the disparity isn't just about numbers on a paycheck. It's about quality of life. European teams sweeten the deal with luxury apartments in major cities, personal vehicles, or chauffeured services, first-class travel for family members, comprehensive health coverage, and even extras like language tutors, private chefs, and job support for partners. Some players are handed signing bonuses equal to an entire WNBA season's salary, plus performance incentives and retirement benefits that no American team can touch. Contrast that with reality stateside. A WNBA player making $200,000 may take home less than $100,000 after taxes, agent fees, and essential expenses. Many juggle off-season side gigs, hosting youth camps, signing short-term sponsorships, or even working second jobs just to stay afloat. Meanwhile, a European player on a $600,000 contract enjoys covered housing, meals, and transportation. A setup that doesn't just provide income, it provides peace of mind. And that peace of mind matters. Privately, players have admitted to the constant anxiety of knowing one injury could end their careers, long before they've earned enough to secure their future. They've voiced frustration watching WNBA attendance and ratings explode while their paychecks stay frozen. Some even compare themselves to male counterparts, brothers, boyfriends, friends, who earn in one season what they'll make in a lifetime. The uncomfortable truth? The WNBA's financial model is broken. Yes, franchise valuations are climbing and media rights deals are improving, but structural flaws remain. The league's revenue-sharing formula favors ownership, not players. The salary cap ties teams' hands, even when they want to compete with international offers. And the dependence on the NBA, while stabilizing, limits the WNBA's autonomy to innovate and diversify its income streams. Then came the breaking point. When reports surfaced that multiple stars were finalizing European contracts, panic gripped WNBA headquarters. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert reportedly called an emergency late-night meeting in New York. Inside that boardroom, according to sources, chaos reigned. Executives were furious, blindsided, and desperate for answers. Some accused others of ignoring the warning signs. Others demanded immediate retaliation. The meeting reportedly stretched past midnight. Voices were raised, tempers flared, and the reality of the league's vulnerability finally hit home. A few owners pushed for legal action, floating the idea of breach of contract lawsuits or even career-ending sanctions against affecting players. Others warned that punishing them would only backfire and expose the league's fragile public image even further. What started as a salary dispute has now morphed into a battle for survival, one that could redefine not just player contracts, but the entire future of women's professional basketball in America. Behind closed doors, the WNBA's leadership was in turmoil. As the reality of losing three of its brightest stars sank in, the room split into two camps, those demanding retaliation and those urging restraint. Some executives pushed for aggressive measures, fines, suspensions, even lawsuits. Others warned that such heavy-handed tactics could explode spectacularly, alienating not just Sophie Cunningham, Caitlin Clark, and Lexie Hull, but the entire player community. The last thing the league needed, they argued, was to look like it was waging war on its own stars. That internal divide perfectly mirrored the existential crisis now engulfing the organization. A legal no man's land, the league's legal team delivered a grim briefing. While WNBA contracts contain restrictive clauses, their ability to legally block players from pursuing overseas opportunities was shaky at best. Previous rulings had made one thing clear: leagues can't indefinitely prevent athletes from earning a living elsewhere, especially if those players are willing to accept the consequences of contract termination. Any lawsuit would be expensive, prolonged, and highly public, with the risk of exposing just how little leverage the WNBA actually had. The financial reality, then came the financial gut punch. The numbers simply didn't add up. Competing with European salaries wasn't just difficult, it was impossible in the short term. While some owners expressed willingness to increase pay, many franchises were already operating at the edge of sustainability. The harsh truth: the league couldn't afford to fix the problem without breaking itself. The PR nightmare public relations consultants painted an equally bleak picture. Attack the players? It would backfire instantly, turning them into heroes fighting for fairness. Stay silent? It would signal weakness and invite more defections. Promise reforms? Without specifics, it would come off as hollow spin. The challenge was monumental: how to acknowledge the legitimacy of player frustrations while still defending the league's stability and somehow avoid looking like the villain. Fractured ownership: when team owners joined via video conference, the divide deepened. Big market franchises with corporate sponsors and deeper pockets pushed for aggressive salary reform. They saw it as an investment in brand protection. Small market owners, already struggling to stay afloat, feared a financial arms race they couldn't win. Consensus was nowhere in sight. A coordinated power play as chaos consumed the league office, Investigative reporters began connecting the dots, and what they uncovered changed the entire narrative. This wasn't a spontaneous act of rebellion. It was a calculated, years-long plan. Sources revealed that informal conversations between these players had been happening for nearly 2 years, sparked by repeated disappointments in contract negotiations and unfulfilled promises of better pay. What began as private venting sessions gradually evolved into a strategic movement. Cunningham, Clark, and Hull had done their homework. They'd met with labor attorneys, consulted athletes from other sports, and meticulously studied the European market. Every step, from the timing of their announcements to the coordination of their agents, was deliberate. This wasn't just about money. It was about sending a message, one the league could no longer afford to ignore. Just months after the WNBA had triumphantly celebrated record-breaking viewership, booming ticket sales, and landmark TV deals, a chilling dose of reality hit. The timing of the players' exodus wasn't accidental. It was surgical. Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexie Hull had chosen this moment deliberately. Their decision wasn't just a career move. It was a statement aimed directly at the heart of what they saw as the league's biggest hypocrisy. A business touting growth and progress, while its own stars were barely scraping by. The message, enough. Sources close to the players confirmed what many suspected. This wasn't about greed. It was about dignity, about worth, about finally rejecting the tired narrative that women athletes should feel grateful just to have a league at all. For years, they'd been told to be patient, to trust the process, to accept subpar salaries because women's sports aren't profitable yet. But as sponsorships ballooned, TV ratings shattered records, and executives cashed their bonuses, the players saw little change in their paychecks. The three stars knew one player walking away could be dismissed as an isolated case. 3 leaving together? That was a revolt. A coordinated shock wave. Every move was premeditated. The trio coordinated the timing of their announcements down to the hour, not for drama, but for maximum media impact. Within minutes, the news cycle exploded. Headlines dominated every major outlet. Talk shows, podcasts, and sports networks scrambled for coverage. Their PR teams had even prepared rebuttals in advance. Statements that framed their departure as a fight for fair labor rights, not betrayal. This isn't about leaving, one insider reportedly said. It's about being heard. Privately, the players acknowledged the risks. They knew sponsors might pull out. They knew the WNBA might treat them as pariahs. They knew future jobs, coaching, broadcasting, endorsements could vanish. But still, they decided it was worth it. They weren't just fighting for themselves. They were fighting for every player who came after them. Quiet support, growing unrest, their courage sent tremors through locker rooms across the league. Group chats buzzed. DMs flew. Players who'd spent years quietly venting about low pay and broken promises now saw proof that change was possible if they were willing to take the risk. Not everyone was ready to follow, but nearly everyone understood. Even those staying behind admitted privately that the trio's frustration was justified, that the system was broken. A chain reaction begins within 48 hours. The situation snowballed into a full-blown crisis. European agents, sensing blood in the water, flooded inboxes across the WNBA. At least 7 All-Stars reportedly received exploratory offers from clubs in Spain, Italy, France, Turkey, and Russia. For the first time, the balance of power in women's basketball had shifted. Europe, long considered a lucrative off-season destination, had suddenly become a legitimate alternative, a place where stars could earn what they were actually worth. The implications were staggering. Analysts on ESPN openly speculated about a potential mass exodus, with one commentator bluntly saying, if even half of these rumors are true, the WNBA could lose its core identity within a year. The tremors from Clark, Cunningham, and Hull's decision weren't just shaking the league. They were reshaping the entire global basketball landscape. Within mere hours of the bombshell announcement, chaos erupted across the WNBA. Agents representing other top-tier stars found themselves inundated with calls. European clubs were circling like sharks, sensing weakness and opportunity. Teams in Spain, Italy, France, and Turkey were openly inquiring about availability, salary ranges, and contract end dates. It was the kind of feeding frenzy no one in women's basketball had ever witnessed before. The balance of power had shifted, and everyone knew it. A league in panic inside WNBA front offices. Panic spread faster than any press release could contain. General managers were on their phones nonstop, calling their own stars in damage control mode. "Tell me you're not thinking about leaving," they pleaded. The answers weren't reassuring. Players thanked them for checking in, but few made firm commitments. Some were polite but vague. Others were brutally direct. Loyalty has to go both ways. A few even warned their teams that unless compensation and conditions improved dramatically, they'd follow the same path when their contracts expired. It was a stunning reversal. For the first time in league history, the players, not the franchises, held the leverage. The internet erupts meanwhile. Social media detonated. Twitter threads dissected every rumor. TikTok creators speculated about who might leave next. Fans built literal departure brackets, betting on which stars were next to sign overseas. Every vague Instagram story, every eyes emoji, and every deleted tweet became evidence in a growing online investigation. Podcasts ran emergency episodes. Analysts invited labor economists, agents, and former players to weigh in. "This isn't a storyline anymore," one sports host said. "This is an existential crisis for the WNBA." Networks and sponsors on edge the shockwaves didn't stop with fans. Major networks, who had just invested heavily in new WNBA broadcasting deals, scrambled to assess their exposure. If star power vanished, so would viewership. Executives demanded urgent meetings with league officials. Could the WNBA guarantee that its television product wouldn't implode? Privately, they began combing through contract fine print, searching for escape clauses or renegotiation options if the league's biggest names left. Sponsors were no calmer. Brands that had built entire marketing campaigns around Caitlin Clark, Sophie Cunningham, and Lexie Hull now faced an awkward reality. Their stars might no longer be part of the WNBA at all. Some began quietly revising endorsement agreements, inserting new clauses protecting their investments if specific athletes exited the league. Others halted upcoming ad campaigns until the situation stabilized. What had started as a player-driven protest was now a full-blown corporate crisis. A legal storm brewing behind the scenes. Lawyers were already preparing for battle. The league's collective bargaining agreement, CBA, once hailed as a milestone for women's sports, suddenly looked fragile. Legal experts pointed out that while WNBA contracts restrict players from joining competing leagues during the U.S. season, those rules might not hold up when players choose to play exclusively overseas. The issue had never been properly tested in court, and a legal showdown could expose uncomfortable truths about how much control the league really has over its athletes. For years, the WNBA's legal framework had kept players tethered with limited options. Now, that framework was cracking under pressure, revealing what one analyst called the structural imbalance at the heart of the WNBA's business model. The league that once prided itself on player empowerment now faced the ultimate irony. Its empowered players were walking out the door.